Francesco Garripoli, and welcome to Qigong Tips number 3. I did my best to find a quiet place, but being here in a typical suburban town outside of a major city, in this case New York, I was amazed how difficult it is to find quiet. I mean, listen, I've got good microphones and everything, and the noise is astounding. We have become so, desensitized to the noise around us. And trying to find quiet with machines and cars and highways. I mean, I can't tell you, I've been driving around for a half hour looking for a place that didn't have planes, cars, traffic, noise of some human-generated kind. And it's really part of this lesson, I guess, as to how we find our quiet. How do we find that inner quiet amidst this turmoil and chaos around our life? So today's lesson is about breath and finding that peace through the breath. And we understand how our body works. We understand a little bit more and more each year with research about what our unconscious drives are that create the turmoil in our life. What those unconscious drives that put us into fight or flight mode. You know, the sympathetic nervous system. Our unconscious, we have to remember, isn't just some Freudian concept out there in our mind. The unconscious is tied integrally into the nervous system. It's tied into our cellular makeup. The unconscious mind is part of our vagal nervous system, part of our unconscious body awareness. Okay, so that interoception, or that idea that we are aware of our bodies, is so critical to help us become aware of our unconscious. Until we become aware of our unconscious drives, we'll constantly be a victim of these unconscious forces that come through us. How do we deal with that? How do you deal with that fear and anger, the emotions of grief, all these kind of survival-based emotions? Well, I talk about that a lot, and of course we cover it in our organ cleansing Qigong instructor certification program pretty intensely in a 5-day course or 3 months follow-on, but still, there's still a lifetime to undo. There's a lifetime to learn. This never stops. But what I'm going to share today is one way to tap into that unconscious by using the breath. There's a lot of research being done lately about the vagus nerve and how the deep abdominal breathing that goes with Qigong and a lot of the Ayurvedic and yoga breathing techniques, how to use the pranayama yoga principles that go back thousands of years, the Qigong principles that go back thousands of years, and merge them with the modern science. It's showing us that when we do deep exhales, especially deep breathing, slow breathing, but the deep exhales, we can, as some people have said, hack into that vagus nerve. What does that mean? The vagus nerve is part of our autonomic nervous system. That's the unconscious nervous system that keeps us breathing, eyes blinking, heartbeat, and so forth. The vagus nerve especially sends messages up to the brain. We call that afferent flow of neurons and brainwave signals. What does that mean? It means that we can use our breath to jack in to our system of unconscious behavior and shift it, override it. Why is the vagus nerve important? Because the vagus nerve connects deeply to the heart. They measure the vagus nerve activity. Okay? They measure vagus nerve stimulation through heart rate variability. That means how the heart becomes more adaptable and to beat at that beautifully irregular way to deal with life. Our stress can be reduced when our heart rate variability goes up. When we use the vagus nerve, which has a direct line to the heart, to the synovial nerve in the heart, there's lots of science. I went to pre-med, so I can have that overwhelmed sense of wanting to know all the science behind things, and you might be interested in it too. But I want to ask you to let go of that. Let go of the science part, although it's powerful. You can see some amazing research into the vagal nerve, research into breath and how it's really starting to become a part of the science of stress management. a science of healing, to understand how our mind can affect our body, how we can manage not only the stress, but how we can manage the whole functioning of our endocrine system, our heart and the circulatory system, our digestive system. All this becomes so clear as to why Qigong works, why this practice means anything at all. So let's look at a breath. Let's look at a nice typical breathing style. We talk about the abdominal breathing, diaphragmatic breathing. We know that the vagus nerve has a sub-diaphragmatic vagal region. When we activate that through that squeezing on the exhales, we trigger that afferent flow to the brain that tells the brain everything's okay. We actually stimulate this part of the brain that is this default mode network. A lot of great neuroscience here talking about how the brain's relaxed state can just be activated through this deep breathing. So get into that squeezing of the diaphragm on your exhales, and then try a multiple series of inhales. I found this really works. It's a little bit from different breathing techniques, the Taoist old techniques from China. They're the core of a lot of Qigong. Exhale deep, squeeze your abdomen, find this lower dantian region squeezing as you tighten up your abdominal muscles. And then inhale multiple times. Try 8 times if you can do it. 4 for the belly, 4 for the chest, like this. And then 1 deep exhale. Squeezing on the exhale. 4 inhales in the belly, 4 for the chest, and exhale. Start to activate that default brain network. There's parts of the frontal lobes, part of the back part of our brain that start to get activated when we relax, when we do this deep breathing. We trigger the vagus nerve to send signals, those afferent flow up to the brain, giving that message that everything's okay. What does it do? It takes that parasympathetic nervous system, activates it, takes the sympathetic nervous system, right, that fight or flight part of our brain, and relaxes it, shuts it down. So all of a sudden, we become aware of this body awareness through the breath starts to reset a lot of the unconscious parts of who we are. Sometimes it's really difficult to look at our unconscious drives. We think about the triggers that happened when we were young. We think about the emotional situation we're dealing with right now. We don't know why so many times we're going into this angry state or this emotional state of fear. That's that parasympathetic response that we can calm down. When the sympathetic nervous system, that physical part of our unconscious gets triggered, that fight or flight mode, we start freaking out. And we know how our life can be that way. I'm not going to freak out about that jet. I'm so far from an airport, you can't get away from it. You can't get away from your unconscious drives either. You can't get away from the triggers. So what we learn through Qigong, through our breathing, through this kind of calm sense of body awareness through breath, is that we can make choices. This whole chaotic world around us becomes a teacher. And we have to decide, are we going to react and respond to it? Are we going to let it be crazy? Are we going to let ourselves get crazy because of it? Or are we going to find the ways to find our center, to use the breath, to do that deep, diaphragmatic, long exhales that activate the autonomic nervous system, override it by triggering and stimulating the vagus nerves that go up to the brain and get us into harmony. Yeah, if you want to bring in some beautiful Qigong movements, we love to roll the ball. This is a beautiful old roll, as we call it in the Wuji Kundun style. Come into a nice, calming place. You might want to find a way to inhale and deep exhale with this squeezing technique, so we can learn from the Lao Gong points in our palm. That's connected to the heart. It's connected to the vagus nerve. That beautifully calms the autonomic nervous system. This is body awareness to get us in touch with the difficult aspect of learning about our unconscious drives. This is really the promise of Qigong. It's not just about making our body feel good. If our emotions are out of balance, all the feel-good body stuff is for naught, because we're still dealing with unprocessed emotional drives. They're getting us into challenges, getting us into trouble, repeating these chronic, habitual challenges in our life. So create a new pattern, create a new habit. Find that deep diaphragmatic breath. Inhale multiple times, and exhale deeply, squeezing the abdomen, drawing the lower dantian in, the Mingmen in the back in, urogenital region up, and the diaphragm, lung energy down, creating that point in the center, that focal point in the center, your place, your core, your home, that beautiful place where you could find your peace within you. This is yours to discover. Try the long, deep breaths. Try those breaths with the deep squeezing. Do multiple inhales and deep, slow exhales. And hack into your system. Jack into your ability to heal, your ability to reset your unconscious drives. It's all built into who we are. Your mastery is within you already. No one told us how to do this, so we become victims of our habitual, autonomic, unconscious responses. That sympathetic response. We're no longer cave people. We're these beautiful, evolved beings waiting to discover our truth. We're infinite consciousness knowing itself through the human experience. And in our evolution, with all this technology around us, we can be here amongst the trees and remember who we really are. Once we discover the truth of who we are, the beautiful technology within every cell in our body, we can begin to make the changes to improve your life from a healthy body level to an emotional and mental level, and ultimately to a spiritual, beautiful, harmonized